Hey, this time we're diving into Smartsheets budgeting. We are talking budget. We're talking about what that mapping looks like. I'll do a more in-depth tour in the future, but this is going to be an overview and an introduction to what this could look like. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and take a look at some basics I want to share with you. What is the point of our budget dashboard? Our budget dashboard has multiple purposes. Our budget dashboard is the home base for our team, for anything that has to do with finances. It's going to pinpoint spending in any month, in any account, any subcategory of an account, any specific contract or spending area. Okay, we can track from this overview all the way back until we hit the actual submitted invoice. Okay. The other thing it's used for is for projections, right? We're seeing how much we budgeted, how much we actually spent. And then for the following year, we can use that information to make adjustments for when the new budget is put together. This will also be the source of live contract spending. So if in the middle of the year, I need to know how much more I have left to travel, I should be able to visit this budget dashboard and it'll tell me how much money I have left in my travel budget. That allows for some playroom and adjustments as necessary. There are future integrations that I'm going to be doing, including getting this to speak with and communicate with our annual administrative workflow, to better understand and have it automate once we have our SOWs, which is scope of work, proposed budgets from individual contracts, and final invoice receipt payment, all of that. It needs to be better integrated into these other systems. I also am going to be doing some better integration for our reimbursement process so that the receipt can be better tracked alongside these invoices. Again, what we're going to look at today is just the mapping, okay? This mapping is quite large. You can start to see here on the side. So I'm going to be using Canva to look through it. And this mapping also includes information for cell links, embedding, etc. So go ahead and open up the Canva link. Let me go ahead and close this. So again, we're looking big picture here. What does this whole map look like? I'm not going to be talking too in depth about how to create the workflows, or how to make a cell link. Those are basic skills that you'll need to reference another video for. I will do some work on this when I do create the new budget sheets for the upcoming year, and clear out the old data. But for now, we're going to look at the mapping itself. The first thing we're looking at is right here. This is the dashboard. Notice the dashboard's here on the side because the dashboard is not only it is our one-stop shop. No one else in their project really needs to look at any of this if they're doing their jobs correctly and carefully. Unless they really want to deep dive into some specific skip ending. So that's why you see so many arrows coming back and forth between different areas here and the dashboard. Our dashboard is both an input and output of information, okay? Again, this is the only place that our financial team should really be needing to stop to do this tracking and budgeting processes. The top part, for full disclosure, was pre-created by a template that exists already in Smartsheet. I had to take it, I had to build it out to meet the needs of our company, which anyone will have to do with a template. But I did go quite into detail with it. So again, the top part gives you an overview. It gives you some graphs, visual representations of how much you spent versus how much more you budgeted, how much for the whole project overall. It also gives you a view of the month and account spending. What I added, though, is also equally important. The next section I added is our actual budget. This lays out each account, each sub account, and each contract and how it interlays and builds together. Okay. This is important to get right. The budget you have will inform a lot of the other building that happens in the back side, right? Everything that's happening to the left of this map. The next section is where invoices that are submitted will show up, as well as where our team can then begin processing that invoice and where we track that payment process. Okay. Once our payment process has been tracked, once it's been paid out, that's when that information will automate into this overview. Okay. So let's take a few steps back. Let's zoom back out and let's come over here. Notice these have different color coding. These top three are manual processes and all these other green areas are automated processes. So let's start again, of course, with what has to be done manually. The first thing that must be done manually, of course, is the submitting of invoices, okay? Every single partner or everyone who we work with who submits invoices to us has a dashboard already, communicating all kinds of information to them. In that dashboard is a widget that I created for invoice submission. This widget is pretty straightforward. It's got a form for them asking basic information and allowing them to submit their actual invoice. But it also includes the guide and regulations for submitting those invoices. This helps minimize a lot of back and forth of missing information. Okay, there's a lot of requirements for our company to process payments, and that's laid out here. Once this widget is accessed through their dashboard, their invoice then appears all on one single sheet. No matter who's submitting an invoice, it appears on this single submission sheet. Okay. The submission sheet has all their answers to the form questions, as well as a link to their invoice itself. Okay. What does this mean? This means that there's no more email back and forth about a specific invoice. There's no looking for invoices. It's not going to get lost. It's just there. I have it so that any new invoices appear at the top of this sheet so that our team can easily identify a new item that needs attention. Once a new item comes in, our team can claim that item so that we know it's being worked on. Once claimed, our team will then extract the information needed using a form. They'll just take what was provided to them. They'll input the information that we wanted to track into this form, and that will be our initiation. Okay. So it had to be submitted first, and then we can initiate the payment process. There is a lot of steps from initiation to payment. So there is a status dropdown for each of those steps. That way, if anyone asks where we are in a process of an invoice, we can always reference back to this. If it hasn't been paid yet, we can find out where it got stopped. Okay. Once it's finally been paid, the final drop down is that we've received it in our ledger. The ledger we'll also designate what month that spending shows up in our budgeting, right? Sometimes the actual spending doesn't show up in the month that it's spent in because it takes so long to process. I might have bought a plane ticket in 1 month, but it won't hit the ledger until the following month because of that processing time. So this tracks what's actually happening, right? Once it's actually been paid and it meets the criteria of having ledger received and the month designation, then we have the workflow to copy that row into our actuals. Notice this is now green. At this point, everything moving forward is automated. Of course, you have to build those automations, but this is where the magic happens. The actuals, again, looks just like our invoices. Should very much so mimic the information here in this invoices. It's one sheet collecting all the information, which means we need to sort that information, okay? The first level of sorting is going to be by account and contract, okay? These are very important to differentiate in your mind what are accounts, what are contracts, because I might want to know how much I'm spending in an account versus I might want to know what that specific contract is spent. It'll sort for you where these go, and on those sheets themselves, you see here, that will then total the spending in that account or that contract. Okay. This is going to be a repetitive process, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But again, once everything's been sorted into account and contract, we still need to break it down by month, okay? Now, these monthly sheets that we pre-create are going to be sorted into folders, okay? Each account will have its own folder, and that account might have some subfolders of sub accounts. So for example, we might have supports, and that might be an account. But then I might have family supports. I might have leadership supports. I might have subject matter supports. All of those are in a folder inside of the supports account, okay? Then that sub-account will have all of those contractors. So anyone who falls under family support will fall under the family supports guide. Same thing for subject matter, et cetera, okay? So these folders are for accounts and sub-accounts, not rebuilding the contracts. Contracts happened earlier. The reason we're doing it this way is because we're separating it out by month at this point. I want to know how much I spent in a month in any account or sub-account. Sometimes we do get a bit more detailed. There's a couple items that are broken down a bit further, and that happens here as well. Once we have the monthly, so I have monthly spend, each month has their own sheet. I now want to see our whole program's spending for that month. So I'm going to take every account and every sub account, I'm going to take their totals and cell link them into this sheet. And then that'll give me the total spending for that month. So it's a summarized way to see this per account, but also for the month. So each month will have their own sheet. Then that sheet, we want to further simplify, and I want to see more information more simply. I'll take each month goes across here at the top, followed by categories down the side. And these are going to be cell links again. So now we have a view of each account per month. That sheet then needs to be created into a report, okay? It's important that it's created into a report because the report then allows us to create the graphs. The report is what lets us make these visual representations on the dashboard, okay? Now, let's take a next view, right? We have the overview. This is the general overview, just giving us an understanding of overall spending per account. Below that, remember we had our budget laid out, and earlier we separated out each contract. Well, those totals are then taken and cell linked into this budget sheet. This budget sheet calculates for us the remaining for every single contract. Okay. And then the rest we've gone through. These are the invoices, and this is the initiation. So one more time, more briefly. Our budget dashboard is input and output. We receive an invoice. We initiate the payment process. Once paid, it's sorted by account and category, which are then sorted by sub account and category by month, which are then summarized by month or into months by account and sub account, which then is summarized into a year by month and account, created into a report to create a visual. And all of those sub categories, all of the contractors, all the contractors are also calculated into the budget. Okay. Again, I'm going to do a more in-depth view of the build process of something like this. But this is just an overview of the power capabilities of this, right? Because I could say, I noticed in this report that we had a lot of spending in a certain month. Why did this account have a lot of spending in that month? And I can click back. I can keep clicking until I'm all the way back to the original invoice. So we can see it on this very basic overview scale. We can see it by account, or we can really go by item. Very powerful, very useful. And I hope that this kind of clears up some of that process. I know that that was a lot of information. I hope that I explained it well enough. But yeah, thank you. And don't forget to check out the other videos that I will be working on and putting together. for a Smartsheet.